And welcome to the Health Detective Podcast with Roberto Parker. Join strength and conditioning expert Roberto Parker as he shares his over 35 years of experience in training athletes and helping people achieve their fitness goals. Now here's your moderator, Chris Whiting, with Coach Roberto.
Hey, all right. Welcome everybody to the Health Detective Podcast. As our intro guy said, I am Chris Whiting, but I'm not the reason you're tuned in tonight. You're tuned in for one reason and one reason only, and that's the man of the hour, Roberto Parker. How are you, Coach?
What's happening, guys? What's happening?
Oh, man, just another glorious Monday after a beautiful Easter weekend. My goodness. Did you get outside this weekend?
Of course. I ran hills yesterday.
What a way to celebrate Easter, running hills. Wow. How many hills did you run?
Well, actually, I didn't run hills. I was up at Keystone Park and I did 620-yard shuttle runs, jumped the fence a couple of times and ran up the hill once.
I would say that, yeah, probably most people in their mid 60s were doing that on Easter, much like you. Wow. Did you have any special food or anything?
Had some beef brisket.
Oh, that's what we had too. It was delicious. Yeah. Did you also have potato casserole like we did?
I did not have that, Chris.
Okay. Well, yeah, we had the potato casserole, the baked beans, of course, the brisket, and the green bean casserole, and it was delightful. But we're not here to talk about how I didn't eat healthy yesterday or how you ran hills yesterday. We're here for the Health Detective Podcast. In this edition, we're going to talk about injuries, correct?
Right.
So I'm curious, and especially as a...
Hang on.
Oh. We got
Wyatt. It's Wyatt calling in. He's supposed to be a guest. Hey, Wyatt, you ready to call in? All right. Bye.
So there's
that was our special guest tonight.
Parker.
Yes, right. Got a special guest coming on. I'm going to talk a little bit about injuries, sports injuries, rehabbing from injuries, just all things injury related. But I think maybe a good place to start is the best way to deal with injuries is to prevent them, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So what do you do to make sure you're doing all you can to prevent injuries from happening?
Well, of course, getting back to food, eating correctly, eating good whole foods helps because, as we know, I've talked about many times, inflammation is the mother of all things bad with the body.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're eating pro-inflammatory type of foods, similar to what you ate yesterday, then that's going to not really lead directly to injuries, but it could potentiate, elevate the cause of injuries. And plus, if you do become hurt, the more pro-inflammatory you are, you're not going to recover as quickly. So getting the right type of food in your system, getting the right biochemical alignment in your system is important. Now, besides that, the things I want to talk about tonight, even when White gets on here, mobility and stability.
Okay.
Mobility, everybody thinks is just great flexibility. Nada. Flexibility is part of the equation, but you have to be mobile and you have to be stable. Now, that you hear a lot about the pelvic floor and the core of the body.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really what I call the epicenter of the body. You know, I always use this analogy. It sounds kind of corny, but you take two trees. One tree has very strong root system and a strong trunk, but very small branches. Another tree has a very weak root trunk system, but very big branches. Which tree will withstand the most amount of stress when it comes to wind, rain, tornadoes? Yes.
I'm going to guess it's the strong root system, big trunk.
Absolutely. So that is the key. Now, you might have huge arms, huge legs, but if you don't have that epicenter strong like you should, it throws everything off. Your hips, your shoulders, your knees, your ankles, because the midsection and the back, be it the front, the posterior, which is your back, and the side, that is the core, the epicenter of the body. Now, when those areas are more mobile and more stable, you're going to have a lot less injuries in life. And even if they're a little bit off, even by just a millimeter, for example, if your right hip is just a millimeter higher than your left hip, that puts more stress on your left knee. So thus, now you're more susceptible to more knee injuries. And when your leg rhythm is off, it also, let's say your left leg, let's say you're into your left leg, that affects the rhythm of your right arm, because when you walk contralaterally.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so your right arm swings forward along with your left foot. And so that will affect the rhythm of your gait. So even having a slight knee injury like that. So how do we get this area stronger? Now, I wish I could be in my gym right now. I could demonstrate a few things, but you've got to focus on what I call a lot of unilateral exercises, one-legged squats, lunges, if you can, one-arm push-ups, one-arm military pressing like this, a lot of unilateral exercises. Planks are good. You know what planks are?
I do. We do them frequently at your gym.
Planks are good. Doing the type of stretching that is more active type stretching. Now, people who really get into yoga, kind of like your wife, Jane, they are flexible, but they're not necessarily mobile, because mobility is a combination of flexibility, strength, balance, and coordination. So it's a lot more athletic, what I'm trying to say here. You can be extremely flexible and still not be very mobile, and you still could be susceptible to injury because you're not very stable.
Can we talk for a second about active stretching? Because that was something that was new to me when I started coming to you. I always thought stretching was, like you said, what you see in yoga, or you sit on the floor, you spread your legs apart and you reach out forward and you just stay in that position. Active stretching is a little bit different. So yeah, if you could talk a little bit about that, that might be helpful for folks.
Okay, active stretching, once again, I wish I could demonstrate. It's hard to do that. If I'm just swinging my arms like this, back and forth, I'm actively stretching out my shoulders. If I just reach up and just take my arm back like this and just hold it, that's more of a passive stretch.
Gotcha.
Okay. Passive stretching has its place now. Don't get me wrong. That's where a lot of yoga people come into play. Active stretching, where you're actively swinging the leg or swinging the arm, and you're doing more active stretching. I think Wyatt just joined us here.
Hey. Hi, Wyatt.
Hello? What's up, Chris?
How are you,
How's
man?
it going, man? I'm good, man. I can't complain. How you doing?
Good, man. I'm not as good as you. I mean, I'm not in California and I'm not handsome, but other than that, I'm doing okay.
I'm trying to get a beard like you, man.
I like it. I like it. So for the folks watching at home, we just got joined here by Roberto's son, Wyatt. So welcome to the program, Wyatt.
Wyatt.
And I've had the opportunity to train with Wyatt a little bit in my past. Had a lot of fun with him. And Roberto, why don't you tell the folks why we're bringing Wyatt on tonight?
Well, Wyatt has an extensive background in high school and college sports, and right now he's doing I don't know if he's competing as powerlifting, but he's dabbling in powerlifting. And while he was training, he started working out with me in 4th grade, right, Wyatt?
Yeah, 4th grade.
Okay.
Wow.
He was a little league football player, played soccer, a little bit of basketball. And so I told him one day, if you're going to play tackle football, you're going to start working out with me. He didn't necessarily like it very much, but I think that as a result of training with me over the years through high school, middle school, college, he was a all-state wrestler, an all-American football player, and he never had any serious injuries, none that I know of anyway. And so I'll just ask him now, maybe he can just kind of go into the type of stuff that he did and how it helped him as an athlete. And even today, he's still training for powerlifting. So Wyatt, just take the floor there.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely accredit my injury-free sports career to the training that my dad had me doing coming up. Just a lot of stability stuff. I think my least favorite were definitely the Turkish get-ups.
Me too. I hate those. Oh my gosh.
Man, I'll tell you, those things give me nightmares to this day. But just stuff like that, just anything making your body stabilize itself and balancing the one-legged squats. There's a couple times in a game where I remember I would get chop blocked and my knee would kind of cave in, and I would think to myself, like, my ACL should have been torn, but it never was, luckily, because I was strong enough in certain positions to where I was injury free. The one injury I did have was during my pro day when I stopped doing the type of training that my dad had me doing, and just like that, I pulled my hamstring. So if that speaks for itself there, Yeah. And now I'm entering powerlifting, where I'm putting, the other day I squatted 540 with no pain, no tweaks or anything. So I definitely have a good foundation from the man Roberto there.
So when you played college football at a high level, were you seeing people around you getting injured on a regular basis?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Basically, almost everyone I played with had some type of. I remember one day we were one game away from our conference championship game. We were at practice. I remember looking around, and every defensive starter, they had where the injured guys would go. They would go to the pool and do pool workouts. I was the only defensive starter practicing that day because I was healthy. I was the only one. Yeah, it was like week 10 of the season.
Yeah. So what do you said you attribute it to the type of training, the stability, mobility. What do you think that does for your body that helps you not get injured?
I think not only learning, but just training how to stabilize your body and how to strengthen your body in certain movements. Because if you're only training like up and down or like two-dimensionally, football especially, and with most sports they're three-dimensional sports, you're moving lateral, you're moving frontwards, backwards at a 45-degree angle, just strengthening your body in different positions, different movement patterns, and I think I had experience with that from a very young age when most people don't. Most people grow up, they think, they'll just squat and bench and do some push-ups, but that's just not enough. You have to strengthen your body for the specific movement pattern that you're going to be doing in your respective sport.
Wow. Yep. So, go ahead, Roberto.
Well, as is going to complete, mobility, stability. Mobility can be accomplished, in my opinion, better by doing more active stretching. Now, when he was training to go to the trial for the NFL or Canadian League, I had him doing a lot of stuff with a bungee cord, leg swings, ankle weight leg swings, like you guys do in class sometimes. And I think he actually got faster. Would you agree with that, Wyatt?
Yeah, I definitely did.
Yeah, to see that's the kind of stuff he was not doing while he was in college and while he was trying out going to some special training up in Denver. But that kind of stuff is important. You got to train the body from the belly button out. I've always said that. Now, I'm all for heavy lifting. I lift heavy myself, deadlifts, squats, overhead military press, bent row, pull-ups. I'm all for heavy kick-ass workouts. But the foundation has got to be, are you stable and are you mobile? And a good way to start that is a lot of body weight type of training. Body weight training focuses more on the belly button out, whereas weightlifting still works your core, but weightlifting focuses a little bit more on the limbs of the body. Follow me? So when you do a handstand push-up, which most people can't do, that's hard to do.
Very hard.
Okay,
yes.
That's where you stabilize yourself against the wall vertically, and you push yourself down and up. You got to stabilize your shoulder, your midsection, your back, your pelvic floor, everything. Whereas if you do a military press, you can do that pretty much all day. if you have really strong arms. But take that same person, have them do a handstand push-up, they struggle.
Interesting. So Wyatt, with you getting into powerlifting now, are you still doing some of the stability, mobility stuff even now?
Yeah, I do a lot of like prehab stuff. Like I do like pre-activation warm-ups. Well, it'll be a lot of mobility, stability work before you go lift. So like basically before you even touch a barbell, you should be sweating. You'll do some Turkish get-ups, reverse hyperextensions, glute ham raises, Superman. It's just things to basically, because you want to prime your CNS and you want to prime yourself to be able to stabilize. You know, you got 500, 600 pounds on your back. I mean, you better be able to stabilize that weight. So you definitely want to get that warmed up before you even put a bar on your back.
And did you say prime your CNS?
Yeah, your central nervous system.
Okay. I thought that was it, but I didn't know. Yeah, I'm not that bright. You know that, Wyatt. You've worked with me before. Yeah, that's good. It's interesting that the one time that you got injured was when you stopped doing that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. Looking back now, I was doing all the wrong stuff.
But you put on a lot of weight too, though. You got up to about 300 plus pounds.
Yeah, but I don't think that's what it was. I mean, I just wasn't working my posterior chain enough. I think, my dad, this is one of his philosophies too, but the posterior chain is everything. If you have a weak back and weak hamstrings, nothing's going to work in terms of athletics. You're going to get hurt consistently.
Whoa. We've not talked about the posterior. Well, I'm sure we've talked about it. We haven't used that terminology.
That's still part of the core I talk about. I consider the core nipples to knees. Okay, front side, lateral side, back side. That's your butt, hamstrings, erector muscles of your back. I mean, all that's really the core of the body, in my opinion. Now, most people think about the core as being your abdominals. It's not true. It's the abdominals. It's your erector spinae in the back. It's your gluteus, lateral gluteus, posterior gluteus, even the front. The hip flexors. Now, a lot of people are tight in their hip flexors. And I can tell when they're tight because they can't squat very well without their heels coming off the floor. And you can improve those significantly by doing leg swings, some passive stretching too. Personally, I think that a lot of men are better doing more active stretching, whereas women respond better to passive stretching. I have no scientific evidence to back that up, but that's just my observation over years of training. Women respond a little bit better to passive at times. Men respond better to more active type of stretching. The stuff that we do before we do our leg days, Chris, we do all the hurdle walks.
Yep.
That's active stretching. Plus you're doing stability and mobility, walking and going under those hurdles.
Hey, and we've mentioned leg swings a couple of times, which are one of my favorite things that we do, actually. It feels good, and it does feel like it loosens me up. But that is something people can do on their own at home. You want to it would be great if we could show, but we're not at the gym, but maybe explain to people what that is.
Yeah, you're standing in place. You can hold on to something to balance you. I like it with an ankle weight on. You just keep your back straight. You swing your leg in front as high as you can and back as far as you can without excessively bending at the waist, because if you bend at the waist, you take the stretch out of the hamstrings and the hip flexor. I had Wyatt doing those almost every day when he finished playing college football and was considering trying out for the NFL. And like I said, I think it really improved his flexibility, because I think he got faster.
Wow.
It really mobilizes. What it does, it mobilizes your hips. And the hips, when the hips get out of alignment, man, it like I said, it throws everything off. It throws your knees off, your ankles off, your lower back, your hamstrings, because when that pelvis tries to tilt this way or tilt that way or tilt back too much, tilt forward too much, it affects your knees. It makes your knees pronate in. It makes your knees bow out. It makes your feet pronate in. It makes your feet pull out. It can even affect your shoulders up top, because when you're in your gait and moving, if your hips are out of alignment, it throws, like I said, it throws the rhythm of your arm swing and your shoulders out of alignment too. The body is one big biomechanical, rhythmical mechanism. And the slightest little thing that can throw it off can lead to potential injury down the road. It might take a while, but it can lead to potential injuries.
Let me ask you this too, and I meant to ask you earlier, so I'm glad we came back to like hips being out of alignment and stuff like that. If you feel like you're suffering from that, what's your opinion on chiropractic to help with that kind of thing?
Find yourself a good chiropractor, a good one. And I know of a couple of good ones in this area. There's good and bad, like anything else. But besides that, you can do things like cryotherapy and hydrotherapy. In fact, Wyatt has done. Why don't you talk about some of the cryotherapy you've done in the past?
Yeah, cryotherapy really helps. You just get in a chamber and I don't know what, I'm not a chemist. I don't know what, it's like a steam they put on you. It's freezing. It gets down to like -250, -300. But I mean, you come out of that thing feeling brand new. It basically just flushes the lactic acid out of your body. You can contrast. They'll get it up to like 80 degrees, then they'll drop it to like -100 degrees in there.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of things you can do. The Theraguns are really good. The massage guns, those are really popular right now.
Yeah.
Cupping's really big, but there's been some studies that came out on cupping that say it's not as beneficial as everybody thinks. That's the thing about sports performance and training. There's always studies that say this new benefit is this, and then there's studies that say no, we found this. It's changing every day.
Oh wow. When you go in a cryotherapy chamber like that, how long are you staying in there at -250 or whatever?
It's usually like 5 minutes. It's really quick.
Okay.
As compared to like if you were in an ice bath, it'd be like 8 to 10 minutes.
Oh wow.
So it's a lot quicker. But most ice baths are like, they'll be like 38 degrees if they're real cold. That's why I used to ice bath every day after football in about 38 degrees for about 10 minutes.
Oh my God.
How'd that feel? Why did it help you?
It definitely helped me. I mean, it's not fun getting in water that cold, but after about the first 2 minutes, your whole body goes numb. So it's not the first 2 minutes, you're cold and you kind of just relax.
Okay. Can I ask you an embarrassing question about ice baths?
What's up?
So I've been trying to do like a minute of just cold water at the end of my showers.
Yeah.
Ice, just, blast the cold, turn off all the hot. It really makes me have to pee. Is that just a me thing, or does that happen when you get in an ice bath? Or
no, that happens. That's part of it.
It is okay.
Yeah,
Good. I'm not weird.
I don't know the science behind it, but that's definitely a thing.
Interesting.
Well,
Wow.
I think that's probably related to your parasympathetic sympathetic nervous system, because you have vasoconstriction and vasodilation, which vasoconstriction, everything kind of constricts.
Yeah.
And when it's cold, it constricts, and when it heats up again, it dilates. And so that probably affects your bladder some way like that, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I thought you were going to say it was because of my small branch with the trees
I
we were
would say
talking about earlier.
This is a family show here, Chris.
Oh, sorry, my bad. So is like when you get into the things like the cryotherapy, those Theraguns or whatever they are, is that preventative, or is that to help deal with injury, or is it a combination?
It's kind of a combination, because basically when you're training, you're tearing down muscle fibers, you have inflammation, lactic acid buildup, and you just want to be able to flush that and have your muscles recover as quickly as possible so you can get back to training again. So it's basically a matter of tearing down muscles and finding a way to make them recover as fast as possible, and then going back as soon as possible to tear them down again. That's how strength's built.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, really, to either one of you, but like so we've talked a lot about, what to do to prevent injury, but if you find that you are injured or you've hurt yourself when you're training, what are some guidelines as far as working back into it without re-injuring yourself or pushing too hard? Like, are there any watch outs along those lines?
I think the biggest thing is just listening to your body and making sure that you're doing everything with correct technique. And also, one thing I've really been getting into powerlifting, a lot of powerlifter coaches are really into, is addressing weak points. So everybody has a weak point, like let's say you're squatting and your hips are shooting up and your chest is coming forward. That means you have a really weak lower back. You should need to get your back stronger so you're able to stabilize the weight. If your hips are shooting up, it just like basically knowing your body. I think filming yourself while you're lifting is huge too, because then you're able to kind of coach yourself. It's like, okay, my hips are kind of shooting up here. I need to work in more, low back strength, and just knowing your body and being able to address what you're not good at and what you are good at, and basically work around that.
Gotcha.
Now, on my part, I would say treatment wise, ice, ice, ice. I'm a big believer in icing areas. I mean, I'm big on ice cups where you freeze the styrofoam in the freezer and you ice massage things like shoulders, knees, tight spots. But I'm also a big believer in contrasting too, where you, once again, getting back to the shower, get in the shower, hot, cold, and I like to always finish with cold. But even when you do the contrasting like that, it gets that circulation, it gets that vasoconstriction, vasodilation going. You can flush out a lot of the gunk, the lactic acid that Wyatt was talking about there. So that's a good, that's good when you do contrasting hot and cold.
Gotcha. Yeah, when I don't know if this is still relevant, but years ago when I had like a sprained ankle, they would tell me for the first whatever day, just ice it, ice on, then ice off, and then you can start putting in some heat with it. But I don't
agree
know.
with that. Yeah,
Okay.
because if you heat immediately, they're still in the acute phase where things are kind of being torn down. And so you don't want to heat it because that can cause inflammation, chronic inflammation. So you want to wait until the injury process has somewhat plateaued, the tearing down process. Then you want to you should ice it right away. But after about a 24-hour period, that's when you can start doing contrasting.
Gotcha.
Yeah. On to add to that, the best thing you can really do, like let's say your ankle swollen, the best thing you can do is get as much blood to it as possible. So if your ankle swollen, just sitting there and just moving your ankle or trying to walk on it, if it's not, too painful, you just want to get as much blood to that spot as possible, because that's what's going to essentially heal it and speed up the recovery process.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, great tips. And then I know you mentioned cupping earlier, Wyatt. Is that, and you said there's some controversial stuff, but isn't that the theory behind cupping, that you're pulling a lot of blood into one area?
Yeah. They've some people are into it, some people aren't. It's kind of trendy. It's like when you see the little circles on people's backs, that's how they train hard. It's kind of become trendy. But I did it once on my hamstrings after I pulled it, and I think it really helped me.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot, I think, on swimmers, like in the Olympics and stuff.
Yeah, Michael Phelps was the first guy to have it, and then that's when everybody started to get curious about it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Interesting therapy approach. Man, and then I think, man, you hit a key thing there of listening to your body. If your body's saying, you're pushing it too hard, then, but that for me, that's such a hard thing, because it's like, am I being a wimp here, or am I really listening to my body? And I guess that's where a coach comes in that can be helpful.
Well, that's where you have to differentiate between, is it injury or is it just painful? Because, working out is painful. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, working out hard is painful. But if you're injured where, you almost feel like your bone's going to shoot through your skin, then you don't want to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the more you work out, the more you kind of have like a mind-body connection to where you're able to be like, okay, my knee's really actually hurting on this. Maybe I shouldn't go any heavier. Maybe I should, find a substitute. The more you work out, the more experienced you become, the more in tune with your body I've found that you get.
Yeah. And with my limited experience, I've kind of found it the same thing. Like, you just get to know your body. You are, and then
exactly
you can respond with that. Yeah. So let me ask you this, Wyatt. You've worked with your dad as a coach, obviously had a lot of coaches throughout all of your, athletic escapades. Do you have a coach now with your powerlifting? Are you doing this on your own?
I was doing it on my own for a while. I actually just got a coach last week. So that's definitely nice. I'm only a week in, but it's been a lot nicer to have. It's very hard to coach yourself, especially in powerlifting, because you're very locked in on, we call them cues of like things you need to do during the lift. Like, you got to breathe in, keep the air in your chest, squat, drive your knees out. And it's nice to have a coach to just be able to watch you and then tell you, oh, your hips are sinking, this, that. Just on anything athletic, I feel like it's great to have a coach that knows a little more than you that can help you, and you just learn more as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I totally agree, but I wanted to hear from somebody who's actually an athlete.
You're an athlete,
As
Chris,
opposed
in my book.
to just me. But yeah, I do think that makes a huge difference. What about you, Roberto? What else do you have to add on our topic here tonight?
Well, like I said, I think that I've started out before Wyatt jumped on. We talked about mobility and stability. That is the core foundation of where you need to begin. And one thing that irritates me about high school coaches sometimes, and I remember when he was in high school, they want you to max out almost the day you walk on campus. And I think that is so dumb and stupid. I would take young middle school, high school freshmen, and we would do a ton of push-ups and pull-ups, teach them how to do one-legged squats, eventually maybe some handstand push-ups, and we would gradually transition to weightlifting. Because you don't want to just start out lifting weights just to max and try to be the king stud in the weight room because you got a bunch of testosterone driven young men in there. You want quality training, teaching those guys how to connect with their bodies. Now, once you develop this foundation of mobilization and stabilization, now we can start getting into the heavy weightlifting.
Yeah.
Now we can start doing heavy squats and heavy deadlifts, heavy power cleans, heavy snatch, heavy push press, or maybe bench press. That's when you want to do it. Because I never forget when I worked for the Chiefs back in 1997, we had a guy who he didn't make the team, but he was a stud in college. He was an offensive lineman center, I believe. He could bench press 425 pounds.
Nice.
So one day I said, I want to show you something here. I demonstrated some push-ups on a stability ball. And this one Swiss balls first kind of hit the scene a little bit. He could not barely do 2 push-ups on that ball.
No way.
And this kid could bench press 425 pounds.
Wow.
And guess what? He also had shoulder problems. I wonder why.
So do you think if he had worked on the mobility stability, he would have been able to do those push-ups as well as bench press a crap ton of weight?
Probably wouldn't have had shoulder problems. It's not really about, it is about, young guys want to be able to lift a lot of weights because, hey, I was the same way when I was that age. But it's how you perform in your respective endeavor, whether you're a competitive athlete, high performance athlete, or a weekend warrior.
Yeah.
The bottom line is how you perform on game day. That's the most important. I mean, you can train your ass off, but if you don't perform on game day, what good is it?
Yeah.
In powerlifting, it's funny because powerlifting, the sport is going heavy. You only go like heavy for 1 rep max once every 12 weeks. So it's funny when you see a lot of these high school, college coaches having their athletes who, high school football is not powerlifting. The sport isn't lifting heavy that are going heavy every week. That's how you know someone's uneducated on strength training. Is when you consistently see people going heavy. You go heavy in powerlifting once every. I just got to the end of my 12-week powerlifting cycle, and that's the first time I've gone for a heavy 1 rep max for the last 12 weeks.
1 rep. Holy.
Yeah.
Dang. So then are you doing what, like just a percentage of max the rest of the time? Hey, we're going to do 70% today, or?
Yeah, it's a lot of percentages, and a lot of it is also addressing the muscle groups around the prime mover. So kind of like what my dad was talking about, the guy who could barely do a push-up on a Swiss ball. We have this bar it's called an earthquake bar. It basically wobbles as you move it. So you press it and you're just shaking the whole time, trying to stabilize it because the weights are just moving up and down. And it just helps you to stabilize your shoulders, which really helps you on your bench because, a lot of people hurt their rotators and their shoulders on bench. So if you're able to stabilize shaking weight, moving weight, or if you're able to do a push-up with body weight on a Swiss ball, you're able to stabilize yourself, your chance for shoulder injury is going to go way down.
Oh, wow. Hey, so question, Roberto. I know in working out with you, sometimes we've put like long chains on the end of heavy bars. Is that a similar thing, or is that
Yeah. I don't know exactly the kind of bar he's talking about there, but when you put a chain on a bar, yeah, you're definitely it makes it a lot more unstable.
Yeah.
That is for sure. Yeah, you're right. It does, because sometimes the chairs are not exactly evenly balanced either. The ones I use anyway aren't. So it adds definitely more stability to the exercise, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. Also, I don't know if you were there when I used to do the beer keg lifts. You ever do those with me, Chris?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've done those. That's fine.
Those are tough. Those are really tough.
That stuff is sloshing around in there, and you're trying to press above your head, and you're shaking around like this as you're lowering and raising the keg up. Very, very similar.
That's
Yeah.
essentially the same thing that the earthquake bar does.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, we did that out at Keystone Park last summer, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
And I was all excited when I saw you pull a keg out of your truck. I'm like, oh, all right. I'm down with this. Little did I know.
Yep.
Gosh.
That's good stuff. That's definitely stability, big time. Now,
Okay.
a good example of mobility is when we do the overs and unders on the hurdles.
Oh yeah.
That's stability too, but it lends itself more towards mobility.
Yeah.
Follow
And
me?
we do those a lot because I am so tight in my hips and hamstrings, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Now, also when we do those, when I have you hold the weights above your head as you're walking over the hurdles,
Yeah.
that's stability and mobility. Now we're leaning more towards stability.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay.
Man, yeah. Well, I know we just got a few minutes left here. So is there anything else on injury prevention or injury treatment that either one of you want to bring up tonight?
One thing I've found for injury prevention is just getting enough sleep. To be honest, they've done a ton of studies that if you're sleep deprived, your chance for injury skyrockets. You know, so just getting a great night's sleep in a nice dark room.
God, that is a great call out. Then just on a personal level, that is something I struggle with, man.
You know,
That's one of the hardest things.
I always talk about that as part of some of the 5 essentials, Chris, you know, regarding food, activity, sleep, fresh air, sunshine. You know, that's part of it, man. Americans don't get enough sleep.
Yeah, I feel
Quality
like
sleep.
that's hard. And I know there's tons of studies, and I know people don't listen to it, me included most of the time, but that blue light from your TV, from your phone, from your computer, you need to get away from that a couple hours at least before it's time to go to bed.
Well, they do have blue blocker glasses, I believe. I've never used them, but they do have.
I've used them. They're kind of weird. I try to avoid getting on my phone or anything like 30 minutes before bed. I got blackout curtains. I have to be in like a completely black room. It really helps. If you've ever slept in a completely black room, it's a whole different quality of sleep.
Yeah, I need to check that out for sure. Yeah, and
so take the TV out of your room, Chris.
Oh boy, see, and here's what's going to happen tonight, guys. I'm going to get in bed and I'm going to watch the NCAA Men's Championship tonight, and then I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to be hyped. And I know what's going to happen. Then I'm going to be tired when I show up tomorrow morning.
There you go, Chris.
I know this.
You know what you need to do, man. Just do it.
Future. Yes. Well, hey, I know we need to wrap up here, but first of all, I just want to thank Wyatt for coming and being on the show today. Hey, it's just good to see your face again, sir.
I appreciate you, man.
But B, you've got some mad knowledge to share. That's awesome. So great to have you here, and it's a great testament to the type of training or the type of impact that Roberto's training has with people. You know, Wyatt played sports all growing up, all the way through college, still powerlifting now, and has really only had one injury of note, and that when he wasn't paying attention to the types of things, the stability and mobility that Roberto has you do. So that's just fantastic. We're gonna have to get you back on here again. If nothing else, some girls might want to watch when you're on. I know they're not watching when it's just me and your dad.
Probably not.
So Roberto, why don't you tell folks how to get in touch with you if they want to learn more about this, want a consultation, want to be trained by you?
Well, let me have Wyatt give his information because he's doing some training too. So
Oh,
Wyatt,
absolutely.
why don't you tell him what you're doing out there in California a little bit on the side?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm definitely right now I'm specializing in strength training. It's definitely the most knowledge base I have is how to get people stronger basically in weak points. But you can follow me on at Wyatt_is50 on Instagram. And I also have a lifting only Instagram that's at lift_Wyatt.
Okay. I'm going to start following you.
I appreciate you, Chris.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, very good. And yeah, best of luck with your own powerlifting and with the coaching. And I'm sure you're going to do great. Beard's looking good. So
I'm trying to get on your level, man.
Yeah. Yours
makes
still
him look
color. I got a lot of gray going on here.
Yeah, it makes him look older, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he looks great regardless, for crying out loud. You know.
By the way, my number is 816-405-7703. Email is rwpsports@yahoo.com. And I'm also on Facebook. Go to Innovative Sports Training, Health and Fitness Forum.
All right. And I'll tell you, folks, been working out with Roberto over the past 10 years. We had a break in there for a little bit, but it's well worth your time. And, you know, if you're local here in the Kansas City area, obviously it's easy to work with Roberto. You can also work with him virtually. And I would tell folks, I've been trained by Wyatt as well, and he's fantastic too. So you just can't go wrong with either one of these guys. Well, hey gang, thanks. And folks, reach out if you need help. Follow Wyatt, follow Roberto, and we'll talk to you next time on the Health Detective Podcast.
Bless, guys. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to the Health Detective Podcast with Roberto Parker. You can contact Roberto at 816-405-7703 or by email at rwpsports@yahoo.com with any comment or question you may have. Join us next time for the Health Detective Podcast with Roberto Parker. The Health Detective Podcast with Roberto Parker has been a KCTK production, produced by Roberto Parker, Chris Whiting, and Paul Lavoda. All rights reserved. For more information and content, email us at kctkradio@gmail.com.